tell me a little bit about this mentorship thing that you are doing and why it is all about FMOD in your case. I mean, I understand that you um, had been introduced to this as a very early on thing in your learning time. So what is it all about?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Okay. So the two audio middlewares out there, the two biggest ones anyway, are Audio Kinetics Wise and then Firelight Technology have FMOD. And they're both fantastic solutions. I want to start by saying that. It's not that I favor one or the other. I was just drawn more to FMOD because as a composer, it's just visually more intuitive. It really looks like a DAW, and a lot of people, it's like the general consensus, you could say. So I started using FMOD for that reason. That's it. I also work in indie games, so I could choose. That's kind of what led me down that path. And through the process, I realized how creatively free FMOD can be. It really feels like a sandbox that you can do so many things to finish off your sound design and your music in. In fact, I very strongly believe that we should be finishing like the last 10-20% of our game audio creative work inside of the middleware, adding live processes and parameters and variations and stuff like that within the middleware. So it's super powerful in that it also informs the way we create things, the way we create the sound design in preparation for understanding how it will be implemented. And I think before we even talk about like Unity or Unreal or Godot or any other game engine stuff, understanding the power of middleware on its own, I think is a very, very important first step in education. So,
Pro Audio Secrets, a show that helps you to find your own voice in sound. In this episode, I'm talking with game audio director Sergio Ronchetti. He runs his own company, Double Jump Audio, out of Barcelona. Originally he's from London. And they provide high quality audio implementation, sound design and music for indie games mainly. He's also very passionate about FMOD, the middleware, and he's teaching that, and he's even an ambassador for the software. So you might have seen him on Game SoundCon or other events. Lately he had a post out where he offered free coaching in FMOD. We talk about the career path that he took on after finishing university and how he got to the point where he is now. And we also talk about how to handle the two things, mentoring versus creative work. We give a lot of insight about how we think networking can be done. So if you are looking to up your networking and business game as a game audio professional or an aspiring game audio sound designer, and also the same goes for post-production because it's very applicable to that industry as well, this episode is for you. Enjoy watching. I know already you are from London, you live in Barcelona right now, you mainly work in game audio. So tell me a little bit about your journey towards being an audio professional and I'm really curious.
Oh, that's so easy, Bastian. I wanted to be a rock star and it didn't work. I didn't make any money. Same as me. There you go. So you understand. Yeah, I wanted to be in a rock star. I played in bands since I was like 15. I didn't go to university. I didn't want to. I was going to study architecture, and I was just very depressed about the idea of spending 7 years studying something that I wasn't going to be happy with. So I decided to follow my interests, and I started playing in bands, started going on tours, making albums, playing festivals, like heavy music as well. And when that didn't work, for so many reasons that we don't need to get into, I decided I was done with egos. I was done with having to try and write music with other people. And instead I said, you know what? I'm just going to do it with just me, right? So I can just deal with me first, because I had an ego as well. So
I just wanted to say, yeah.
Yeah.
The essence of ego then.
Absolutely. I take my part of the responsibility. I also had an ego. So I thought, why not film composing? Why not go and study how to compose music for films? So I went to university, ironically, studied music, and then the first thing that came out of it was game audio. That was the first opportunity I had from people actually were willing to give me money for things that I could do. And I thought, that's interesting. And I remember like one time my lecturer mentioned the word FMOD, which is like, I think there's a software called FMOD, I'm not sure. And then just my mind just kind of opened everything up for me. I did some game jams. I met Gerner, who made the first indie game that I worked on. And very luckily as well, there was publishing, there was support, and it picked up enough traction to be my first released project, which I realize now is very lucky for a lot of people, because so many things get cancelled or pushed back, and it's not uncommon to be years in the industry without having released many projects, and that's no fault of your own. So anyway, yeah, that's where I am now. So I'm now doing less music. I'm now doing more sound design. I now run my own game audio company called Double Jump Audio. So now I'm taking on more of the high vision kind of director role, which I find that I'm very good at it. I like looking after the mix and taking care of the general structure and direction of the creative vision, you could say. And yeah.
So you still work with FMOD, I assume?
100%, yes.
I connected you because you shared that you are willing to teach FMOD for free. So a lot of people reached out to you. I think that was just a day before yesterday. And tell me a little bit about this mentorship thing that you are doing, and why it is all about FMOD in your case. I mean, I understand that you had been introduced to this as a very early on thing in your learning time. So what is it all about?
Yeah, okay, great question. Okay, so the two audio middlewares out there, the two biggest ones anyway, are Audio Kinetics Wise, and then Firelight Technology have FMOD. And they're both fantastic solutions. I want to start by saying that. It's not that I favor one or the other. I was just drawn more to FMOD because as a composer, it's just visually more intuitive. It really looks like a DAW, and a lot of people, it's like the general consensus, you could say. So I started using FMOD for that reason. That's it. I also work in indie games, so I could choose. That's kind of what led me down that path. And through the process, I realized how creatively free FMOD can be. It really feels like a sandbox that you can do so many things to finish off your sound design and your music in. In fact, I very strongly believe that we should be finishing like the last 10-20% of our game audio creative work inside of the middleware, adding live processes and parameters and variations and stuff like that within the middleware. So it's super powerful in that it also informs the way we create things, the way we create the sound design in preparation for understanding how it will be implemented. And I think before we even talk about like Unity or Unreal or Godot or any other game engine stuff, understanding the power of middleware on its own, I think is a very, very important first step in education. So through teaching, I've been teaching at universities for years. I still teach at master's levels universities, and I teach my own courses. I decided to get more people involved with FMOD. So I thought I can definitely put out a free exercise for people to have a go at, give them feedback, and then basically point them into the next direction.
I see. So I learned in my Foley recordings when I started working on games at Ubisoft that I cannot use my traditional way of working Foley. For example, cutting all the high end on my recordings was not really working because the middleware handles that with all the attenuation curves, and therefore I got feedback, from the audio designers. Yeah, we like your sounds, but we're missing a little bit of high end. And the first response from my end was, yeah, it should be like that, so chill. And then I had to learn that this is actually wrong, and I have to adapt to this new medium. And that was a learning that I had. And
there you go.
Yeah.
I'm sure you got a great response from saying chill as well.
I don't know if I framed it like that.
Of course it is.
Yeah, but that was my approach. That was my thinking behind it. Yeah. I mean, they hired me as a senior Foley artist there, but never mind. I mean, it was a bit ignorant, to be honest.
No, but of course, they hire us not just for like our services, but they hire us for our expertise and advice. Of course, your response is to be like, yeah, this is how it should sound at the end. But you're absolutely right. This is, again, middleware affords us these luxuries now that it almost has made me lazier. I want to say, I dare to say, as a sound designer or composer, because I know if something's not perfect, I'm like, well, I can fix that in post, quote unquote. I can fix that in middleware. And that is what middleware is for. I think a lot of people are still scared to do that, but I don't think we should be. Like, that's why there are plugins. And that's why I'm trying to encourage people to learn FMOD and realize how creative it is. You don't have to be perfect. You are allowed to be creative and spontaneous, you could say.
And what made you move to Barcelona?
Oh, good question. It wasn't the humidity. It definitely wasn't the humidity. It wasn't the Spanish taxes either. No, I joke. I have family in Spain. I have family in Barcelona, and my wife and I wanted to move abroad. We were kind of tired of the UK. At least we lived in London, and London is it's not the cheapest city, shall we say. But we wanted an adventure. We wanted a little experience moving abroad, and we thought of a couple places, and then it turned out Barcelona was the perfect option. So here we are, 2 and a bit years living here. We don't have any plans to move anytime soon, so we're very happy.
And how was your journey towards where you are right now, having your own company, working more audio direction, not indie games? Did you also work at studios as an employee, or what was your journey towards where you are right now?
At university, studying to be a composer, nobody tells you that you have to freelance. Nobody tells you that there isn't the music composition company handing out music jobs and you just leave university and said, I'd like one, please. Thank you. It doesn't work like that. So it kind of came as almost a little bit of a shock when I left to be like, why didn't anybody prepare me for this? Like, of course I have to freelance. I have to be my own business, even if you're an individual, right? You have to, as I'm sure you know, run yourself as a business, as a company, even if it's an employee of one.
Yeah.
So that's how it started, realizing that, okay, I need to learn these other soft skills that nobody taught me. So networking, how to handle some finances, how to protect myself, financial security and safeguarding, because you're not an employee. I've never worked at a studio, although I have applied and I never got the job, which could be for various reasons. I think the main one is because I always presented myself as more than one thing. And studios don't tend to like that. They prefer going for the person who is dedicated to the thing that they want, understandably. So I found myself more and more heading towards being pushed towards the freelance direction, finding projects in sound design and music in general. And then it turns out game audio was way more interesting and more lucrative because there are more rungs in the ladder, you could say. There are more opportunities all the way up the ladder, as opposed to other disciplines where maybe you're waiting many years before you actually get a decent paying project. So that's where I found myself. But I also love teaching, which is why I'm giving out free lessons on FMOD still. So because I have this outlet for teaching, and I help now, for instance, I'm working with FMOD actually behind the scenes, if I'm allowed to say that yet. I'm working with Greg Lester on his gameaudiolearning.com website, which is fantastic. We're revamping it and making the 2.0 version and doing some stuff with Airwiggles. I'm now part of the Airwiggles team. I have all of these outlets, and I realized, Sergio, you do not have time to do two things like that full time. So setting up Double Jump Audio in one way was allowing myself to have more time to do these things that I love doing, because I wouldn't be happy if I couldn't do them, if I had to just do the game audio creative work, if that makes sense. And I'm
Totally.
sure, I don't know if you can relate to that in any way, Bastian, but that's where I found myself. And of course, I also now offer more value with Double Jump Audio because my colleagues like Valentin is fantastic at scripting, a fellow countryman, by the way, is fantastic at implementation and scripting, which I'm not that great at. I also work with Joel, who does fantastic music production work and all of my mixing. Again, not something that I am good at, nor am I interested in. And I also worked with other people like Heli Linus, who helped me with the sound design work on a recent project. All of these people who are much better at the specific things that they do. So I team up with them now. And as a result, my clients get the full package. They end up getting a full team and way more value. But yeah, I don't know if you've had a similar situation, because you obviously love teaching Foley as well. I wonder how you balance that between your creative work.
Yeah, it is a challenge, to be honest, because same as you, I'm really passionate about the whole teaching thing. I discovered that just through a couple of opportunities that I had at SAE and other universities. And now I see myself running my one-man show as a Foley artist here in my studio. And sometimes I just want to do more of the mentoring and less the heavy grind on the projects. So therefore, I'm also looking for ways to accomplish that by just training someone here, a friend of mine who lives in Budapest, and he flies in from time to time. He was there once now, and he wants to come back next week maybe.
Wow.
Because he's a boom operator working on all the high budget stuff that they shoot in Budapest. And but he's kind of fed up with the industry there, and the whole job as a boom operator is not fulfilling for him. And he, by the way, taught 10 years at the film school in London, I think in West London.
Nice.
And so I try to hand it over to him to get him trained up. And at the beginning, maybe he's my mixer and he learns alongside. But then later on, he might also be able to cater for TV movies and stuff like that.
That's
so
great.
Then I have more time to do the mentorship and the community that I'm just building right now. But it's a long-term process. And so I was wondering,
100%.
your team, have you hired them or you just team up as freelancers?
Yes, a good question. We're all contractors, so it really is on a project per project basis. And for that affords me the flexibility, because the idea of having an employee scares me. The idea of being responsible for somebody like that, but also because I find other people who are in a very similar position to myself, who maybe don't just do game audio creative work, but have other avenues. For instance, Valentin does a lot of German television and film, a lot of linear work. And he obviously still wants to do that, and I totally understand that. He also used to do some teaching. Joel in America has his own studio where he records live acts and bands and artists and all of that stuff. So I don't want to drag anybody away from their other commitments. So it kind of works out so far anyway, in a very balanced and kind of perfect way that we, when there's a project, we all pitch in, we figure out how it works around our schedules. And, but of course there's a lot of trust involved. I am like 100% transparent with what's coming in and how it works, including the budget, including the projects and how it's going to work. And, as long as there's that trust, I feel like, in a smaller team anyway, so far, I think it's possible to follow the model I have been following so far. So yeah.
And then how did you meet those team members that you have now, and how could you build that trust with them?
So Joel I've known since, do you know what? I went through a period of just going on Twitter, finding some composers and being like, hey, you sound like a cool person. Do you want to chat? Should we have a Zoom chat? And that worked really well. And I met dozens of really cool people who I still talk to and I'm still friends with today. Joel was one of those people. It turns out Joel is fantastic at mixing and production. And all of my music for the DLC, at least for Eldest Souls, for instance, was mixed by him. And oh my God, I have to do like A/B comparisons. I think I put a video on it actually of what he does to the music. So I met him that way anyway. So he does all my mixing, any trailers that we work on, any production. He also does some composition gigs that come in that don't suit my musical needs, let's say. Valentin, during COVID, there was I think his name is Guy Bloomberg. He set up this, he used to work at E3, right? He was one of the coordinators at the event. And he set up this online networking event, which still happens now. It's called GIG. It's called Game Industry Gathering. And if you've been in the industry for a certain number of years, you can get in. It's a really cool group of people. And it still happens. It happens, I think, every first Friday of the month, if anybody else is interested. And on one of the calls, on the Christmas call, there was some German guy wearing Christmas tree earrings, looking goofy as hell. And he just seemed like a really cool guy. And again, after the group chat, because it's kind of like a speed dating, kind of speed networking kind of round. You have 20 minutes talking to a few people, then you meet some more people. I was like, this guy seems cool. He seems funny. And I booked a chat. I said, cool, why don't we work on a little project? And that was it. It was really as simple as that. It's funny how humans work. I've never met him yet. In fact, we're planning to meet each other in person for the first time at Gamescom this year in Germany. For the first time after like nearly 2 years working together. But it's funny how it works, right? He just seemed like a cool guy, and I'm like, yeah, let's try it. Obviously, I'm not crazy. Like we started with a small job, and I made sure that he was real and he actually delivered good work, and we both liked each other. And then after that, we kind of grew and did bigger projects, and now we're working pretty much 50-50 on anything that comes through with Double Jump Audio.
Yeah, then you have to definitely come to my place when you are at Gamescom, because I want to host a little game audio barbecue at my place.
Ooh, oh my God, absolutely.
So
Let's do it.
you know the game audio meetup that Victor is organizing?
No, I haven't. How could we-
Victor, him, I don't know how to pronounce his surname correctly, but he is operating Flutu music and Flutu games. You know him?
No, I don't. I don't know any of this yet.
He lives in Spain as well.
Oh, Victor. Yeah. He lives in, I think he lives in Valencia, actually. If I'm not mistaken.
Possible, yeah.
I met him at Game SoundCon last year in
the US.
LA. Yeah. And yeah, somebody told me like, oh, there's another Spanish person here. You should go meet. Well, I don't think he's Spanish, but he lives in Valencia.
He's
you
from
should
Brazil,
go and,
yeah.
Cool. Of course, I know
he
Victor.
organizes. So Victor organizes the game audio meetup at Gamescom for a couple of years now already.
Awesome.
I was there 2 years ago and last year as well, and I also hopped on a podcast with him, and then we discussed that having a little barbecue prior or before the actual game audio meetup could be really cool.
Awesome.
We want to organize this. It might be a bit tricky because it is maybe 45 minutes by car or by a bus to get to my place from Gamescom. But yeah,
we're gonna
figure it out.
Oh yeah, I'll bring the schnitzels. Can you cook schnitzels on a barbecue? Let's find out. Let's do it.
Yeah, we have a little. I mean, the thing is with me, as I'm Muslim, there will be no pork and no alcohol. So I also have to communicate that, but never mind. I mean,
not a problem.
It will be awesome, I hope.
Sounds good, man.
Quick one. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode so far, and hopefully you gained some insights and value from it. If that's the case, I want to ask you for one quick thing. Please subscribe to the channel, because it really helps us to grow this and to maintain it as well, to keep the value coming your way. Thanks for doing this, and let's get back to the episode. As I recall, you are starting out as a musician, wanting to be a rock star, and you had already some momentum there, as you mentioned. You had some gigs, you even played festivals, but then you opted out from that and studied composing, right? And how long is the journey already going for you in terms of years? So when did you actually start with that study and then learning about FMOD and game audio up until now?
I should say I started losing my hair at a young age. So this doesn't define my age totally. But you could say that since if I started playing in bands since I was 15, I was involved in music. I stopped playing in bands around 22. So I think I did about 4 or 5 years professionally, you could say, like, playing gigs, making money, but not seeing any of the money because it went straight out to expenses, etc. But so I guess the first game we released was about in 2021, I think Elder Souls was released, and you could say that was my first game just finished university. So since 21, I've been kind of in game audio, you could say. I think since about 2023, I went full-time in game audio. So, 100%. I used to have a part-time job working at my university. And I think this is an important point, actually. I think it's important to put ourselves in a position of strength when we're chasing something that we love, right? Something that we want to do, because the most important thing that motivates us at the start and indeed throughout the whole career should be the fact that we enjoy it, right? That you love opening that car door behind you and closing it every day because it just brings you joy, not because of any other reason. That should be the first thing, right? So of course, at the start, we're worried about finding projects and making enough money. And I think we should avoid that mindset by just putting ourselves in a stronger position. So finding a part-time job that is maybe completely unrelated to game audio, right? As so many people do, and sometimes still do. For instance, I still teach, to be fair. So it's still related to game audio, but it's still separate if you want to think about that. And that kind of, I like doing that because that means it takes less pressure of me saying yes to every single project that comes my way. So I wait for the good ones or the ones that suit me and suit Double Jump Audio. So I think having a part-time job at the start, completely unrelated, takes the pressure off you. It could be anything. It could be different for everybody. Like, I don't know, just a simpler living situation where you don't have to depend on those first projects because you could be waiting. You don't know how long you might be waiting, or there's so many variables in play, you know, so many stories of people who go 10 years working a full-time job before they get their first composing gig. And then all of a sudden they become a composer full-time because they find the right project. You know, everybody has a slightly different journey, I think. And I think we just have to accept that in order to find ours, we have to be very flexible and we have to really focus on the opportunities that present themselves to us. I don't know if you always dreamed of being a Foley artist or what did that kind of, how did that come about?
That was also not the case. I was also doing a career as a rapper and was really passionate about that. But things not really worked out as I planned. And then I looked into audio for movies because that was from back then the only thing that I hadn't looked into. So I was working in the studio as an engineer for music. I was on live events, but I never really made a career there because my music was the first priority. And then when I switched those priorities, I wanted to get into post-production sound. I wanted to study at a university. They wouldn't accept me. And then I found an apprenticeship in Berlin where I could then stay for 2.5 years and learn all the fundamental stuff about audio editing and post-production sound. And that was already with having a background of being a self-taught audio engineer for 10 years, basically. I had to really learn the craft of dialogue editing, sound effects editing, ADR, Foley, mixing, movies, all these things I had no idea about. So that was a really good learning that I had there in those 2.5 years. And then from there, I progressed into my first employment as an intermediate sound designer for movies and series, also in Berlin. And then I worked there 7 years. And within that 7 years, I progressed into becoming a Foley artist. Long story short.
Amazing.
So, and then I always wanted to work on big projects. I also interned in London at Delane Lee and Goldcrest and couldn't really see myself there as the competition is insane and also the living conditions are really difficult. I mean, you know it better than I do.
I know, you're preaching to the choir. Yep.
Yeah. So I didn't see myself there. I was newly married. We didn't have kids back then, but I was fairly young as well, 24 or something. And yeah, then I went back to Berlin and never could really work on those blockbuster movies, 120 million international co-production kind of thing. And then the Ubisoft opportunity came up, which I also didn't plan at all. But they were looking for a senior Foley artist for the Düsseldorf location. And then I understood pretty quickly that this could be my chance to work on those blockbuster projects. And therefore I then, made up my mind and applied for this thing and then also got it. So then I had to move the whole family to Düsseldorf from Berlin, and then I stayed there for 5 years. And now I finished Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, and Assassin's Creed, Nexus VR, alongside a couple of other titles, which was definitely worth it. You know, I mean, that was the goal that I had. I also learned a ton about game audio, which I really didn't expect to ever learn that. And so yeah, that's my story, and I also
Fantastic.
appreciate that a lot because it gives me a huge momentum with those titles now. Avatar is even nominated for Best Game Foley at the Gang Awards,
Amazing.
and
Amazing.
and now I also be able, I am able to work on game audio stuff. So for example, yesterday I had my first day in the studio to work on an indie game with an audio director. So he was on Zoom the whole day, and I recorded all the stuff that he had for his first playable. And that was already a beautiful experience because it's so different than working on movies. And to be able to do this just off the bat, because I have this 5 years of experience at Ubisoft, that it is just I'm very thankful for that, and but contrary to be able to work on movies, leaving Ubisoft was also such a good thing for me because I missed that so much. And
Right.
so yeah, now it's all about balancing the online business ideas that I have versus the freelance gigs that I also do and I want to keep doing. So
Yeah.
how do you? I mean, from what I wanted to ask you is because knowing now that you did all this, that the current state that you are in, only in 4 years after graduating, I think to me this is quite a fast career path that you undertook. So what were the fundamentals that you just practiced within those 4 years, let's say, that helped you to get to the point where you are right now?
Okay, it's a good question. Going back to like my time at university, it really felt like I was going back to school, but I was older. So I went into university not as an 18, 19-year-old, not really knowing what the hell I was doing, but more like, oh no, I want this. I'm going to make this fucking work. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I went in there and I took every single opportunity possible. As soon as one came up on an email, I'm like, yes, I'll do that short film. I'll compose for that project. I went to every single office hour possible with my lecturers and surprised many of them because I was committed to things that, oh my God, I learned things that I can't even remember now. I was studying Haydn quartets, violin quartets, and being like, understanding all of this theory that you could not ask me now because it's just gone through one ear and flown right out of the other one. But I was committed. And so that's the first thing. And I think that was an advantage, I think, because when you're younger, you don't know what the hell you want to do. You have to figure it out, right? You have to go traveling and discover who you are and then come back and I think make a decision. So that's the first thing. I was more mature, I would say, when I went to study. Having said that, in part, thanks to the band, thanks to my time as a musician, I got over the idea of meeting people and talking and being social. I feel like, being on stage in front of like hundreds, if not thousands of people and singing or telling them what to do, it does something. You build a little bit of confidence. So that helped. And I realized that kind of translated kind of perfectly into the soft skills that you need to put yourself out there. A lot of students, talk about how, I'm going to finish this project and then I'm going to start networking. I'm going to get really good at what I need to do and then I'll start talking to people and looking for work. And I think this is a massive mistake because, first of all, opportunities present themselves as we are studying, right? You're surrounded by so many people who are influencing you and inspiring you and who can connect you. And the second thing is that networking is a skill. And just like sound design or Foley or composition, you need to practice. It's not this natural born gift that some people have. Even if they do have it, they still have to practice. So I think the biggest thing that I could give anybody as a piece of advice is go to meetups, go to game jams, go to conventions, talk to people online in these communities like airwiggles.com where people are friendly and nice and inviting. Practice putting yourself out there because even if you want to work a studio job, you still have to communicate who you are and what you are good at. And if you can't do that, that's why we have interview processes. They want to find out who you are, that you could have the best sound reel and background ever possible. But if you can't fit inside of a team, if they can't picture working with you, you're not going to get hired. You're going to get hired after these other people in front of you. So the soft skills, networking, talking about your craft, meeting people, and understanding how to put value back into the community. And again, this is a really long-winded answer, but just to finish, like I see so many people making great content, you included, right? You're making this fantastic Foley content that people can learn from and be, or at the very least be entertained by and inspired, right? And I kind of found my traction by, a couple of years ago, I started uploading FMOD videos. I was kind of like, FMOD is fantastic. The documentation, however, is really difficult for me to like digest. And there really aren't enough videos online. So I just started putting out 2-minute videos explaining like one thing at a time, really cleanly, but in a visual format that I know that I personally respond to. And turns out lots of other people found them really useful as well. So what I realized through that process is that I found something that I could contribute to the community with, right? Help other people. And you really get what you put in when it comes to at least game audio and the communities online. The more you put in, the more value, the more you're friendly and helpful to other people, the more you get back. And that will include opportunities and paid work. And I'm sure I am also preaching to the choir in this respect. I'm sure you've experienced your fair share of the same thing.
Of course. I mean, everything that you just said is something that I always mention in my coaching mentorship calls. And also I talked about this with Greg from Air Wiggles and Lewis. So I mean, the whole story that I just heard from you, being more confident from performing on stage, that is also something that I can absolutely relate to, because I did that for many years, and I had hundreds of gigs that I played as a front man, let's say. And therefore it's also easier for me now to talk into the camera or just use that medium. And then again, everything you said about bringing the value to the community is essential. And I even think we should rethink our show reels, because if you can display who you are in your show reel already, make a 90-second kind of compilation of your work, but also 100%. Explain the process behind, so that people can understand who you are before they even invite you to an interview. That is, I think, needed these days. And I also think, from what I heard from people that I had calls with, the networking is the biggest issue. That people are not really aware of this value idea or the concept of giving value and then connecting through that and building an audience or a network around you, rather than DMing people. Yeah, I just finished university and I look for work. Do you have work for me? This is something that doesn't really resonate with people, because people are busy. And if you don't put a job offer out, then you're not interested in people just asking for work. So people should really understand how to connect with people. For example, just a simple thing. If you are interested in networking with someone specifically, you could look if this person puts out content themselves, and then first start on a superficial level and comment and like those posts. Or if someone has a podcast, go and write a review on all the different platforms. And then this person will already get to know you on that level. And if an opportunity comes up with a meetup or these things you mentioned, to go there either virtually or in person, then if you introduce yourself, they already know who you are. And then it's way better.
100%. 100%. Any lecture that I give on networking, I did one with Into Games. It was actually Greg's course on like creative sound design. And I went on as a guest lecturer to talk about networking. And it's something I also teach on my personal coaching course, which I haven't launched for a year or so. But when I do, it's all about this cold message that so many people receive and send out. And I don't blame people for trying. Like, well done. You've tried to message somebody. But again, nobody teaches you this in university. Like, the best comparison you can make is you don't go up to somebody in an in-person event or at the pub or something and say, oh, hey, I just finished university. Do you have a job for me? Or I'll do a really good job. Can you hire me? Are you looking for somebody? Like, the reaction would be like, no, or I don't know who you are. So even if I was, why would I hire you instead of the people who I already know? That's the biggest argument you can make. I have, and I'm sure you do as well. If you had to hire somebody tomorrow, I'm sure like a bunch of people pop into your head straight away. And I'm sure they would be people who you already know, people who you are friendly with. Maybe you've already worked with them before, so you trust them. These three things like don't happen in one cold message. So I totally agree with what you say. I implore everybody to instead message somebody and send them a compliment. Send them a compliment of something they've just been doing, like you said, their podcast, like this one, for instance, or a tutorial that they've put out, or a project that they've worked on that you really admire, and just say, hey, I love your work on X thing. Like, and this is what I learned from my mentor, Akash Thakar, right? He's fantastic at all of this stuff. And I was one of on one of his courses when he put it out, I joined it, and this is the stuff that he preaches, and this is the stuff that I now also preach, because it's how to do it. It's how to make genuine connections, right? We have to go out and make friends, not, it doesn't happen with just asking for something straight away.
So just that you say that now, I realized that I also do this. I contact people just by telling them that I really like their work. Because if I watch a movie and I enjoyed, for example, the Foley on that movie, I of course look up the credits, and then the next thing I do before I even stand up from watching the movie, I go to LinkedIn, look that person up, and then just write a small comment like, I really enjoyed your Foley, and that's it, And then
100%.
You never know what happens from that. And for example, there was one actual connection that I made with a Foley artist from Munich. And then when I was there for vacation, I even met up with him in the studio he's working in. And we had a great experience. I saw a really awesome Foley studio. And then maybe a year later or something, I got an SMS from this same Foley artist and telling me, hey, I watched a movie and I saw that you did the Foley after I was really fascinated about the quality.
Nice.
So I just want to let you know that that was really good work. And,
That's it.
And as you said, if I want to hire someone, he would be probably one of the first person I would call, because I know that he can do the job, and I already know him, and I had a one-on-one meeting with him in person, and that was just from a simple message that I sent out to him because I liked one of the Netflix things that he did.
Right. And I tell students, put yourself in their position, put yourselves in the developer's shoes that you're trying to message. If you had to hire somebody, who would you hire? Would you hire somebody who's just cold messaged you out of nowhere? Or would you hire somebody that you know and maybe you're already friends with? The answer is always the latter, right? And it's the same reason why, that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a month, not even 6 months, maybe not even in a year, right? This takes time to build, and it should take time to build, which is why I go back to the first thing that I said, which was put yourself in a position of strength so that you can enjoy the journey. Because the journey will lead you into really exciting places, but you have to be prepared to be patient, because that's the only way that it happens.
Yeah.
We have to make sure we put ourselves in those positions where we are in those inner circles, so we stand a better chance of getting these opportunities if they come about. But for that to happen, it's, we didn't make school friends in one day. The friends that we might have from school still to this day are people who we saw every day. We hung out with every day at school. Maybe we hung out with them outside of school. And then the reason we spent time with them is because there was an exchange of value. Like, we enjoyed each other's company. We made each other laugh, whatever it might be, right? We shared hobbies. But that took years to happen. So you have to think it's very similar. It's a very similar process in a creative career.
Yeah, and in your case, you managed to do it in 4 years, let's say.
I guess that was
in my
lucky.
case, it took way longer. I mean, I see from what we put out there in the world, we are on a similar level, let's say. And but I had a 15 years prior to that employment career where I was not thinking about these things as well because I didn't have to. I mean, nevertheless, to get those employment gigs that I had, also I had to do a lot of networking and being a pain for people to always show up again and asking, okay, when do we have the meeting now, or can I come? And then I call again, and did you look up the stuff, or when can I come? And then we didn't really discuss this, and okay, then I call again, and then they say, you know what? Just come on Monday. Just come next Monday before you call again. You know?
Being
so I did all this.
Annoying.
Yeah, politely annoying. That's the right term. And also with my first job after the apprenticeship, there was already networking going on, because through networking I managed to go to London to do those internships. And then I also realized that there is another player in the market and they are looking actually for a job. So I applied for a trainee position in Munich while I was applying for every studio that I could find online. So it's not just, you have to do the work. And then they got on a call with me and telling me, this trainee position is already filled, but we keep your details if something comes up. And then just a week later or something, there was this job ad about an intermediate position in Berlin, and that was where I lived. So it's way better. It's not a trainee, it's an intermediate position. So, and then I realized the people from that company already visited the company that I was an apprentice at. So I just went to my mentors, employers, and told them, look, there's this job opportunity at this company, De Facto Motion. And I realized they visited our place, right? So can you maybe connect me with them, or tell them that I applied, or give a good word about me, recommend me, refer me to them? And that's what they actually did. Fantastic. And so I was there, one of the first people that they interviewed for it. I could clearly prove that I can do the work for them that they were looking for. So that's also a very important thing, that people get the skills right so that they can really convince potential collaborators, employers, that they are up for the task. And not only about after 9 months of training within the company, but basically if you can do it right away, that's ideal to get hired, right? So that was clear. But then again, I called the guy all the time. I called him at least 4 or 5 times, and then he decided to give me the gig, because he could see that I'm really motivated. And also back then it was not about the money. When I was applying there and we had the job interview, he asked me, what do you want to earn? And I just calculated how much money I need to survive, like literally to just pay my bills, And then I said that this is the amount I need. And then it was very low back then because I didn't have much cost. So he said, okay, we can do that. And he gave me even a couple of hundred more than that. But that's then nice. Also, throughout those 7 years then in that company, I saw or realized the value that I bring. And then I always put that on the negotiation table and always discussed the salary. It has to be more. And when can we do it? And then we discuss, okay, in 6 months we can give you another raise. And then the time came, and then I brought it up again myself, over and over again. I always hold my managers accountable to what they said. Good. And never just shied away and just thought, they will come to me. And so then I could really progress from this very low salary. In the beginning, it was about 2,200 euros gross income that I had for this full-time position. And I think in the end I was at 5,000.
Fantastic.
Which is a lot for Europe and working in a creative field, it's really a lot. I mean, compared to other industries, I still think this is not enough, but what can you do? I mean, then another thing I want to bring up, because now we're talking about money. I was at Ubisoft then, and I had lunch with with Adam, as a senior sound designer at Ubisoft as well. And then I was talking about, yeah, my salary now, and if I work 10 years here, I can increase the salary to a certain amount, and then I go from senior to expert and whatnot. And then he just stopped me and said, look, if you want to talk money, please don't talk salary. And that was a sentence for me that really made me think, and I think I'm still processing that. And
In what sense? What, like, oh, it's rude to talk about salary, or?
no, in a sense that if you really want to make money or save money or earn money on a way, that exceeds your living costs, let's say, you shouldn't think about salary. You should think about another way to earn revenue and make a business. Yeah. So it took me quite some time to wrap my head around that, but it really shocked me when he said that. And so now I'm thinking scaling my freelance business, making an online business with courses and mentorship program, community, in-person live events. I'm really thinking in an entrepreneurial way now.
Yeah.
That I'm really passionate about, and I also think it brings a lot of value to people who would then purchase those products.
100%.
So therefore, it is a huge step for me now to implement that. And there's so much learning now in that field, because I mean, I didn't go to the university, but I also never got anything taught about sales, about marketing, about copywriting, and those things that you actually need when you want to run an online business. So how do you feel about all these things?
Oh my God. I like the way that I can't remember his second name, but Gordon, who is the head of A Shell in the Pit, which is the audio company from Canada, I think Vancouver as well, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, he described it in his GDC talk about how in good years they rival AAA studio salaries and they make very good money. On a not so good year, on a slow year, they just cover their bills. They cover their expenses and they're still, surviving, if that makes sense. I like that analogy because it is true. It is very up and down as a freelancer. I think it takes a while to truly stabilize, and it's something that I think slowly, hopefully, starting to experience now in these coming years. Again, I'm not that far into my career. I think I got lucky with the first project having picked up traction and having been a little bit older and knowing what I wanted to do, but it's still quite early days, I would say, for me. So I like the way he says that because it makes you realize that it does take some time, but the advantage for me is always the fact that my time is my own. I don't think at this point, and I don't want to say this in case somebody wants to hire me for a big AAA studio for a senior position, but I don't think I would be happy. I don't think I would work in a studio environment as a full-time employee because I just don't work that way. I try to be as efficient as possible because I can be very flexible with my time. I also like taking breaks whenever I feel like it. Again, this is what I'm saying. Like I put myself in a position of strength that I don't have to work 8 hours a day. I can do it at the same amount of the same value or more value, I could argue, in a lot less time. So I will happily trade money for time in that respect. But on what else you've said, like, being entrepreneurial, I think we should have an element of that as a freelancer anyway, even if we just choose to do the creative side of things, just work as a sound designer, just work as a composer, but putting out content that is exciting, that's going to make you improve your reputation and make you be seen as an authority in your field, right? As a local authority at the very least, local to the people in your circles and your sphere of influence, shall we say, or maybe physically locally, like in your city. Like if you go to meetups and you're always giving audio talks, then people are going to see you as the audio expert, right? Because they know you, so they'd rather go to you. It's as simple as that. It's an emotional thing. We are emotional creatures. We like to talk to people we like. That's it. As simple as that. So I think being entrepreneurial in some ways is very advantageous. And like you said, there are many more revenue streams that you can explore. Even if you're a composer, for instance, making library music is one thing, streaming music, recording live instruments for other composers, like all of these things are still very diverse when it comes to just doing one thing, which is like being a composer, for instance. So yeah, I think it's important, these soft skills.
Definitely. So in your journey, how do you see the mentorship versus the client-based sound design, audio direction work? How are you planning on balancing this?
Oh, yes. Good question. I want it to be like 50-50. I want it to be 50-50 because I think I can't teach without having my foot in the other space, my foot in the door for creative work. I think if I stop doing the creative work, it would take me out of touch with what is current, what is modern, and what are, the trends of that industry. I don't want that. Also because I love doing it. I love working in games. I don't know about you, but I fucking love it. I would be very sad if I couldn't work on the games myself. But it allows me to have a much more direct, a much better connection with how to teach students and be able to tell them, look, I just got this project, or I just did this on this project right now. This is what is working right now. So I know that it's going to be useful or relevant to you. I would hate to not have that connection, if that makes sense. So I am 100% 50-50, even if that means, and this is why I've also set up Double Jump Audio, because I don't have to do as much of the busy work, you could say. So necessarily like creating all the sound assets. Instead, I'm focusing on the FMOD side of things, the implementation, taking care of the mix, as Alex Riviere says so well in his book. Buy that book, Game Audio Mixing, is fantastic. And because of that, I'm still in touch with everything, all the processes, even if I'm not the one doing the actual action, if that makes sense. That's enough for me to know that I have, enough value to continue teaching people and give them the advice that they need.
And then also you get new inspiration from the teaching that actually fuels your work then again.
100%.
So, yeah, it's
100%.
I can really relate to that. Yeah.
All the stuff I'm doing now with the folks at Air Wiggles and with Greg on Game Audio Learning and all of that stuff, it just feeds everything that I'm doing in my creative work. The fact that I'm in close contact with I did a workshop for FMOD at Game SoundCon, for instance, like their official workshops, which is a dream come true for me. And because of that, I got to learn from Aaron Edwards, who's the product manager, and I learned so many things about FMOD that in such a short space of time that I'm instantly applying to my creative work. So it's invaluable. All these interviews that I'm doing on my YouTube channel for like the FMOD deep dives, I'm learning from other sound designers and learning what they did in their projects, and then just copying what they've done. And I'm sure you've learned so much from your podcasting as well that you've then maybe applied to other areas of your life and your work. So it's all relevant.
Of course.
It's all relevant.
Yeah. So, for example, when we wrap it up and go back to the networking, it took me 15 years in the industry and 10 years as a self-taught audio engineer before that to be where I am today. But now I'm leveraging this thing that I have to fast track, for example, my networking. Because, for example, we have never been really in touch. Then I saw your post. I realized you're on the same journey than I am. I can learn from you, and I can also offer you something right away to record that podcast that we're just doing. So I'm going into your DMs, offering you that value and letting you know that we're on the same path. So why shouldn't we talk about it?
100%.
And then now, after 1.5 hours on that meeting, we know each other way better than we could have known each other otherwise. Otherwise, maybe the same connection that we have now would have taken a year or two to build that up on a traditional way.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a podcast and if you don't have all those things to fast track it, then get yourself to the point where you can do it, So bring the value and find your unique
100%.
voice and sound, and then go for it and use it and leverage it and be kind and helpful, and then things come to you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so valuable, like your DM to me, that 7 months from now we could be enjoying a lovely halal barbecue in Cologne, together in the German sunshine, and that's all thanks to this one message you sent me like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% agree.
Okay. So yeah, it was an awesome conversation. Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the things that you do and the value that you bring to the community. I admire you for the efficiency that you have in all what you do. And yeah, please keep on doing this and share all the stuff.
Wow, that was very, very nice of you to say. Thank you very much. I'm glad I have that impression on people, and likewise. I mean, I've known about you for a number of months now as well, just because your videos are, like you said, not just entertaining, because Foley is very interesting on its own, but also quite educational. You know, and I'm pretty sure I've sent you your stuff to a couple of students who are focusing on Foley and be like, just copy this guy. This guy seems to know what he's doing, and he's got a lot of free content, which is very helpful. And again, like, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing now with FMOD in particular. So again, just if it wasn't clear, if anybody's watching this and you want a free lesson on FMOD, just literally just message me saying, hey, Sergio, I'd love to hear more about this free lesson about FMOD, and I will set you up with some exercises that will help you. But yeah, anyway,
Awesome.
Thank you so much for this. This was truly a pleasure, Bastian. And I hope we can continue talking.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully before the barbecue.
Absolutely. I will. Let's make sure of it. Yeah, 100%.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ciao.
Thank you very much for watching up until the end. It really means a lot to me. I hope you could gain the value and information you were looking for in the first place. If you have further feedback or questions, please put them in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And you can also reach Sergio and myself on LinkedIn or Instagram via DM. We both are very passionate about mentorship and mentoring, game audio and audio post-production. So if you're interested in that, definitely give us a shout out on Instagram or leave a comment. We're happy to help. In the meantime, enjoy one of the next videos. Peace.